Hi players, bonjour from Paris, my name is Asaf and welcome to my channel Easy Board Games. Today we're going to have a review for Dune War for Arrakis and its expansions that was published by CMON. And before we're going into it, I just want to apologize in advance for maybe the background noises that you might hear. Apparently this is a crazy traffic day here in Paris. So let's have a quick overview of the game before we're diving into the review. In Dune War for Arrakis, which is a game that is 1 to 4 players, each player is going to take the side of one of the two options that we have. One of them is the Harkonnens, which are the red figurines that you're seeing over here, and the other side is the Atreides. Both players are going to fight for the control over the northern hemisphere of the planet Arrakis and its valuable spice. The win condition for the Harkonnens is to have 10 supremacy, and they're going to achieve supremacy by destroying the different siege, which are these buildings of the Atreides over here. And the win condition for the Atreides is basically to have a certain level in all of these markers that we can see on the right side, and that is going to be a hidden mission that the Harkonnens are not really sure what are the exact parameters that the Atreides need to have. Now, during this game, the first thing that we're going to do is to draw these two cards. So we have 2 for the Atreides and 2 for the Harkonnens. That is the first thing that we're going to do. And those action cards are going to allow us to do different things during the game, either to actually resolve what is written on the card itself, or we'll be able to use the card in order to add a die to the combat itself. We will talk about combat a little bit later. After that, the Harkonnens are going to place a few vehicles, and that depends on this table that we have over here of the spice must flow. It's this one that we can see right now on the screen. So at the beginning of the game, they will be able to place 3 harvesters, also 2 ornithopters and 1 carryall. This is something that is going to change if we're going to play with another expansion that is called the Smugglers. And after that, we're going to start having the action resolution. So in order to do that, we're going to have 8 dice. Again, this is at the beginning of the game. 8 dice for the Harkonnens. We're going to have 4 for the Atreides. Each player is going to roll them, and they're going to allocate these dice according to their result on their player board. This is what we have right over here for the Atreides, and this one right over here for the Harkonnens. I'm sorry that not everything is neatly, nicely placed on one shot, just because this game is really a table hog. But in any case, when we have something like this, for example, we're going to place the die just like this, then another one over here, and these two can come over here. Now, starting with the Atreides, we're going to do actions. Now, for the Atreides, we're going to have something a little bit special. Since they have less action dice available right now than the Harkonnens, they will be able to do an action without depleting any one of the dice. So I kind of failed mentioning that, but each player that wants to take an action has to deplete a dice and allocate it just like this. Now, the action that they will be able to do is either what is written over here, or if we have, for example, a leader, a named leader, then we'll be able to take a special action only one time per turn, let's say. So after that, the card is going to be depleted until the next round. But the Atreides, again, because they have less available dice right now than the Harkonnens, they will be able to do this free action, which is something that is going to allow them to control these awesome sandworms that we have over here, or either add some tokens just like this, that they will be able to send right. That means just move a little bit further more. Then later we're going to flip them, but this is something that we'll see a few steps ahead. After that, after all the players, and the Harkonnens are going to be the last player that is executing an action die, we're going to move on to the desert hazards. Now in that phase, the Atreides is going to put one of these tokens in every desert area where the Harkonnens have units or harvesters. So for example, if this legion would have been right over here, then the Atreides player would have taken one of these tokens and place it over here. After we have tokens on everything, we're going to flip these tokens and we're going to solve what we have. If, for example, we're going to have this token with a worm that we can see over here, that is going to pop a worm immediately in the same area. And basically that means that this harvester is being destroyed. Unless, of course, we're going to have a carry-all in the same sector that is going to save this harvester. And in that case, the worm is not going to disappear. It's going to stay here on the board. And in the next turn, the Atreides will be able to move it from one place to another. After that, we're going to have some more desert hazards, and that means that if we're still having Legion in desert areas, then of course, because the Harkonnens are not used to the desert like the Atreides and their allies, the Freemen, then they're going to roll some dice and see if they're taking some hits. After we finished that phase, we're going to have the spice harvesting, and basically in each area where we're having a harvester, we're going to collect some spice. If we're in a normal desert area, that means not in a deep desert that is located on the borders of the board itself, we're going to collect 1 spice. If it's in the deep desert, then we're going to collect 2 spice. That spice we're going to use in order to leave the 3 tokens that we have, I'm sorry about that, right over here, for example. So let's put it like this, it's going to be a little bit nicer. We're going to pay 2 spice in order to leave this token in its place, or if this token was in a lower position than the topmost position, we'll need to pay 3 spice in order to push it up. Now, every time we're not going to have enough spice to at least leave these tokens in the same place, we're going to take a token and we're going to take it down. And that is going to cause for an Imperial Ban, which is a card that we're going to play to show that the Harkonnens are having some problems in the next round. And also, since here we can see we have a place for a die, then the Harkonnens in the next round are going to have 1 less die. If at some point, for example, we're even having this situation, then because we have a token in this position right over here, that means that the Harkonnens are going to lose 3 dice for the next turn, and this is something that is greatly affecting them. After we have finished with the spice harvesting, we have the end of the round phase, which is kind of an upkeep of different things to refresh, for example, the pre-science cards, which I kind of failed to mention, but these are, let's call it like side quests or small things that the Atreides will need to do in order to push these tokens up, and then releasing more characters and advancing, of course, for the winning condition. So that was really in a nutshell, a quick overview of the game, because there are a lot of things that I haven't talked about, like the different movements, different units, how combat works, which is something that we're going to talk about a little bit later, and really other things like the expansions that we're also going to talk about a little bit later. But in general, this is how the game works. The players are going to just play turn after turn after turn without any kind of limitation until one of the sides completely wins the game, either the Harkonnens by having tennis supremacy or the Atreides by completing their secret mission card. So let's start, like all the other reviews, with talking about the setup of the game and learning the rules. So actually the setup, I mean, yeah, it's not the most comfortable thing just because you have a lot of small miniatures to deal with, but this is actually less bothering me than the teardown of the game itself. Now, I don't have a lot of CMON games, and this is pretty much my 3rd one. I have Blood Rage and also Ankh in my collection, but I'm not so sure I have a game with so many miniatures. That is great. Over 100 small soldiers, figurines, spaceships, whatever. This is, for me personally, that is insane. So the thing is that, of course, you're going to have this carton inside the box in order to protect everything, because it has a special like insert that every miniature goes there. And it's, I think, really good for if you're painting miniatures, right? Because if they're all cramped up together, it's going to, of course, affect the mini itself, right? It's going to peel the paint. But for me, as someone that is probably not going to paint these specific miniatures, I'm not so sure that I want to keep it. So I'm guessing that if I would have made a different insert for this game, I would just like put all the miniatures of one side in one place and other miniatures in another. But just the teardown, if you want to keep that insert and place all 100 and something miniatures nicely in where they want to go, wow, that is kind of insane. So teardown actually is what is problematic for me in terms of this game, which is something that can take alone, I think, about 40-45 minutes. I'm not joking, especially because I'm still not used to where each miniature is going to go inside this insert. So that is a little bit crazy for me to have. I don't have a problem usually with long setups of the game, but the teardown is really what killed me, and that is actually something that made me think, Do I want to crack open this game and play another time? But we're going to talk about it a little bit later towards the end of the video. The second thing that I want to talk about are the rules themselves, the ease of play, the ease of learning the game. And I think that the rulebook that we have over here is not a bad rulebook. I think that when you're already a little bit more comfortable with it and comfortable with the rules, it's kind of easy to search for things that you're looking for, different question, which is thanks to the amazing index that you have at the end of the rulebook, which I think it's kind of cool. The thing is that if you're completely new to this game and you just want to learn how to play, I think that the rulebook is not really organized in a good way. Not to mention that CMON later released, I think that right now it's already the FAQ 3.0, so a lot of things, not a lot of things, okay? It's not going to affect completely the game, but there are some clarifications that are important to the game that you might want to be aware of, because they are going to change something in the game. For example, I think that one of the biggest changes that you have is when you're attacking, if you actually won, you don't have to move to the new area. It is a possibility, so you can actually stay behind, which I think is kind of a big deal. The rest of the things are just clarifications, like slightly modifying the rules, especially end conditions for the Atreides and so on. Not going to burden you with that. Feel free to check it in CMON's website. So again, I think that in general, the rulebook is good. To tell you that you can like freely and immediately just start the game from reading it one time, probably not. But it will help you if you're just really going to go step by step and take your time in your first game. I think it's going to make things a little bit easier. Moving on to the next thing, and that is the gameplay itself, okay? How does it feel to play this game? So, first of all, and this is again something that is going to add to the bottom line of the video, but I think that if you like the IP of Dune, if you are a Dune fan, this is an amazing game, because it's not only you're playing some characters. Personally, I like Dune, it's okay, I'm not a huge fan of Dune, so a lot of the characters I'm not really familiar with, so it doesn't say really something to me. So for me, when I'm moving, for example, let's take a small example, I don't know, when I'm moving Steban Tuek, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, it doesn't mean anything to me. But if you love the IP and you know the characters, I think that this is really awesome, because the way that the game is built is pretty much like a story. The more the Harkonnens are going to advance, for example, in their supremacy, the different characters are going to be released to the game. And the same thing happens with the Atreides. For the first 3 tokens that reach level 3, the Atreides are going to release Paul Muad'Dib, that is going to change actually from Paul Atreides. Also the Reverend Mother, or the Lady Jessica that we have at the beginning. And then it's Reverend Mother Jessica, which is kind of cool, because if you're following the movies or actually the book itself of Frank Herbert, this is kind of like how things rolled up. So I think that this is something that contributes to the epic feeling of the game, that you're building something, that the story changes, new characters go in, old characters not really die but change, like Beast Rabban that is going to be replaced later by a different character. And I think that this is something really immersive over here. Now, beyond the story itself, the game is kind of easy. It really flows. That means that players are going to take actions kind of quickly. We're not having here downtime almost at all, because every time, of course, the other side wants to do something, you're really focused on what's going on, which kind of makes sense, because this is a only 2-player game. Yes, you can play 2 versus 2, right? You're going to split the Freemen and the Atreides, and also the Harkonnens and their allies that I kind of forgot their names. But it doesn't really feel like a 4-player game. I don't think that I would have liked to take another decision with another player, because it's basically taking one board that we have over here and just split it in the middle, and now each side is going to take a decision. I don't think that this game has a lot of maintenance, let's say, that it's really important for you to understand, or important for you to divide the responsibilities, let's say. In other games that I've mentioned in different videos, like Spirit Island, for example, or Cerebria, you do have a lot of things to take care of, so this is something that you would like actually another player to kind of share the burden with, okay? So it does make sense in other games to have two players for the same side. In Dune War for Arrakis, for me, it doesn't make sense, so I probably will not choose to play this game at 4 players, only 1 versus 1. So there's almost no downtime here. When one side is doing something, the other side needs to see what's going on, because that is definitely going to affect their next action and vice versa. So no downtime in the game. This is something that I absolutely love, which again makes sense in a game like this, again, because this is 1 versus 1, and also the actions are kind of quick. I don't remember one time that an action took too long or something like that, or just you have a lot of analysis paralysis. Again, I think that it can happen maybe like with combos, okay? One card leads to playing another one, but again, the actions themselves are kind of quick, even if you're playing card after card. So because the game is relatively simple and it's nice, but you have a lot of small rules that you're not really sure all the time how to play. I think that you really need to have a few games under your belt in order to not check the rules at least one time per round, I want to say. It doesn't, I think that I've seen worse. It's not the end of the world at all. It's not supposed to deter you from playing this game. But because you have these small rules, sometimes it makes the game kind of stuck. And you're like, hold on, let me check what's happening when a worm just come out from the ground. What do I do with the carrot? Can I do it now? Can I not do it now? So again, after maybe your third game, I want to say, it's going to be a little bit easier. But until then, you might want to go consult the rulebook a little bit more. So if I'm going to connect the gameplay itself to the theme, I think that this game is highly thematic. I think you're going to appreciate it if you like the IP. For me, most of the time, it was really just like characters moving on the board itself, more like chess-wise, if you know what I mean. Didn't really feel something when I'm saying like Sardaukar or I don't know, let's see, what is this character over here? Tufir Hawat or something like that. I'm like, all right, it's another character. I'm guessing that if it would have been an IP that I would know better or like more, then it would have actually made this game even better for me. So again, if the IP of Dune is something that you like, this is something that you should definitely be interested in. Now, on top of that, at least the book that I read many years ago, it does feel that the Atreides obviously need to have more of like covert action. They're not really like the Harkonnens, just like tanks moving on the field very, let's say, in a noisy kind of way, very brutal, just like massive legions. The Atreides need to find different ways, especially using the sand riding that they will be able to do in order to do actions that are a little bit like maybe unorthodox, let's say it like that, and it's going to be more agile, more flexible across the board, which is really interesting and changes the game if you're playing the Harkonnens, obviously, or the Atreides. So let's connect that already to the replayability. Now, here I would like also to talk about the expansions. In terms of replayability, I think that if you're using the base game alone, obviously your games are going to change if you're playing the Atreides or the Harkonnens. But I think that just like chess, many times in your game, if you're playing just with the base game, the first few actions that either side is going to do are gonna resemble each other. So I think that the replayability comes more when you're going deeper into this game to the more advanced levels. That because it depends on the cards that you drew, the different action cards or the pre-science cards that you have with the Atreides. So that is kind of going to navigate them to different route, and then the Harkonnens are going to react to that. So at the beginning, it's kind of going to be the samey. The more you advance into this game, the more different things you're going to see. This is where you're going to have the expansions helping you kind of in this matter. Look, I think that if you know me and you know this channel a little bit, you already know that I'm not someone to recommend expansions immediately right when you're buying a game, because you need to see if you like the game. I think that integrating the expansions already in your second game is something that is highly recommended. First of all, because I think that each one of the expansions adding, to my surprise, a lot of depth to this game. more thing. It is going to make the game maybe a bit more, I don't know if clunky is the right way, but a little bit more complicated in terms, because you have two other rule books. That this is something actually that I didn't like, that those rules are not integrated into the core rule book. It makes sense to me on one side, but on the other side, it's like, okay, so now I need to be with 3 rule books in a session if I'm using the 2 expansions. Also because both of the expansions are going to add something to the flow of the game itself, to the different phases that we have during the game. So it's kind of difficult to like do something like, hold on, let me check the other 2 rulebooks just to make sure that we didn't forget something. It's not so comfortable. But if you already integrated them and you feel comfortable, I think that these expansions have add a lot of depth into this game. The smugglers, first of all, which is something that is going to, it's like a neutral faction. Again, it's going to contribute to the theme and to this epicness of this game, if you can say it like that, because at the beginning they're going to be with the Harkonnens. So the Harkonnens will be able to add more of these harvesters, okay, that are going to help them with spice, and they even have a carryall that is going to save them. And then at some point, when the Atreides are going to reach a certain parameter, doesn't matter what, then the loyalty of these smugglers faction is going to change. So now that the Harkonnens, cannot use at all these carryalls and spice harvesters, and also on the other side, the Atreides are going to have now ornithopters, which is something that the Atreides didn't have before, and they're going to have some other soldiers. So it really changes the balance, not really the balance, but it changes the weight of the game from one side to another, which is really kind of cool, and really contribute to this feeling that you're playing something that is bigger than a game. On top of that, if we're talking about the other expansion, that we have, the Spacing Guild. So this is something that both players are going to have. You're going to have these ships. I'm really sorry that I don't remember all the names that we have over here, but these ships are going to fly slowly to Arrakis, having with them some soldiers, also some other spaceships that are going to help both sides on planet Arrakis. Again, when the first time one of the spaceships actually arrives to the planet itself, to Arrakis, wow, this is really cool, because you feel that now everything changed and one of the sides have more soldiers and more things to do, which is awesome. Also, something that I forgot to say about the smugglers, that when the Atreides are going to achieve kind of control over them, they're going to have actually another action that they will be able to do and move the units of the smugglers as well, which is really, again, something that gives the game a lot of depth. So this is concerning the replayability and the expansions. I do think that if you're already making an investment in buying this game, because it's not a cheap one, I don't know how the third expansion that is now being presented in GameFound is going to be. I'm not going to buy it, but we'll talk about it in a few more minutes. But these 2 expansions are something that I would definitely take from the get-go. One more thing that I want to talk to you about, guys, if we're already talking about replayability and expansions, and those are the 2 modules that I saw in this game. One of them is the Old Man of the Desert, which is how we're going to integrate this massive miniature of this sandworm that we have over here. And another one is alternate futures or something like that. I apologize, I'm going to add the name in its correct way to the screen. And that is just something that is going to add more characters to this game. What would have happened if the story would have taken different directions, something like that. Personally, I think that I'm going to see myself adding only the Old Man of the Desert to this game. But this is something that you should be aware of, because it's going to increase replayability and going to diverse the game a little bit. The next thing that I would like to talk to you about are the components itself, the value of the game. Is it worth it? So I think that most of you guys actually know the production of CMON better than I do. I think that the production of Ankh is amazing. It's, I think, the first time when I opened a box and I'm like, whoa, the miniatures are amazing. And it's not really different over here. Now, here's the thing. Because even for a simple soldier, a simple unit, let's say, we're going to have different miniatures. Okay, what's important is actually the base itself, if it's round, if it's this square, or if it's going to be this hexagon for the Sardokar. But you do have different miniatures for the same type of unit, which is, I'm guessing, again, something that you can appreciate greatly. Personally, for me, just for me, it's not too much of a big deal. I think that because when you're moving legions, let me take you down again to the map. When you're moving legions, it's not like every time you're going to raise a miniature and you're like, oh my, you're going to admire this miniature. You're like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. Nah, basically what is going to happen is you're going to move one legion from one place to another. You're just like, okay, this legion is going to move from here over here. Nah, that's it. That's exactly what you're going to do. So because you're going to move them usually with groups and stuff like that, you're not really, I think that it's actually kind of creating a mess, especially when you have miniatures like this, that small movement and you're like knocking down different miniatures because the areas themselves are not so big, and you can have not only the six basic unit, not basic unit, 6 units in one area. Okay, that is the limit. You're going to have like different leaders. So for example, there you go, you see, so everything falls down. So yeah, you need to be a little bit more careful with that. But when you have 8 miniatures in one area, just to move them, it's really not important how the miniatures look like, but actually how comfortable it is. So again, the miniatures look amazing over here. I think that everything actually next to painted sandworms doesn't really look better, but the different miniatures are really awesome, and you can see that, like, in theory, a carrier can go and take a spice harvester, which is something cool. I don't know, I think it's just too many miniatures for me. Okay, maybe it's just my personal preference. I mean, for sure it's just my personal preference. But it's just too many miniatures. And because, again, I'm taking you back to the beginning of the video, because later you'll need to put every miniature in specifically that place in the insert. It's something that is just going to make the setup and the teardown kind of a nightmare. I think that I'm going to get rid of the insert that I have inside and actually prepare my own insert where all the units are going to be in one place, maybe separate them by their if it's a basic unit, if it's a leader, or if it's a generic leader, or whatever. But I think that this is something that is really going to ease up the setup and teardown of the game, especially if I want to add both expansions to the core box, because I fluffing hate having multiple boxes for a game. I hate it. So, production-wise, I got my copy with the expansions and the playmat for, I want to say, 207 euros, if I'm not mistaken, around that, which I think is a good deal for the production value that you have over here. On the other hand, I did see prices in the secondhand market, especially when Dune started to reach backers, for about 300-400 euros or dollars, whatever. That is expensive. For sure, I would not pay that amount of money on Dune. I don't think, personally, I don't think that it's worth that amount of money, but I think that if you can find it around the $200 euros, yeah, that kind of makes sense to me, especially because of the content that you're having inside. If you're a mini painter, if you like miniatures, if this is your thing, you are going to have some fun, my friends. With that, guys, let's talk one word, and it's really going to be one word about the solo mode. I have no idea. I tried to learn the solo mode right after I finished the video for how to play Dune. I started to read, I did the setup, I did everything, and then I'm like, you know what? It's just a little bit too much for me. I'm not even sure if the solo mode is something that is going to be enjoyable, because there's a lot of managing of the other faction. I think that it's not going to be so intuitive. I think you need to check a few things, but I cannot say too much more than that because I never tried it. I just know that it's not so easy to understand how it works. The bottom line, guys, is this game going to stay in my collection? Absolutely yes. I enjoy it. I think that it's unique. I think that even though I don't know the IP so well, I still enjoy the chess-like back and forth kind of things. The game doesn't take too long. I think that the second game already we played at around 2.5 hours, I want to say, which I think that is kind of okay for this kind of game. And it was with the expansions and with also kind of consulting the different rule books from time to time. So I think that time-wise it's okay. I definitely want to dig more into this game and see what else it has to propose. Not in terms of content, because we already tried everything, but I would like to play for both sides, since I already played for the Harkonnen. So I really want to see how it's like to be the Atreides, which is awesome. I don't think that I'm going to back the new expansion, just because I think that $50 for not a lot of content, and that is before the taxes and shipments. So we're already talking about around 70 euros of what's going on. If you want the new rule book that has actually all the things that should have been there in the first place, you need to have, again, $20 more for the deluxe rule book or whatever. This is probably not something that I'm going to have. Beyond that, again, if you like the IP, I think that this game is a must for you. You're going to have so much fun just because you probably know the game, the characters, the books, and everything that's going on better than I do. And it really gives you the feeling like a story is being rolled in front of you, which is something that I highly appreciate. Also, I know that the same creators did War of the Ring, which is kind of make me feel like I want to compare between Dune War for Arrakis, War of the Ring, and also Star Wars Rebellion. All of them are basically one versus one kind of game, tells a story, which I think maybe it's something that is going to be interesting for you guys. And with that, guys, I'm going to seal the video. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. If you learned something new or saw something that you like, consider subscribing, becoming a member, just liking and commenting on the video. That is a huge help for me. If you want to keep in touch a little bit more, feel free to join the Discord, the Easy Board Games Discord, which is something new that I have. I'm going to attach a link down below. Tell me in person or in comments or whatever, what do you think about this review? Do you agree with me? Disagree with me? You think that Dune is a garbage game? Do you think that Dune is one of the best games that you ever played? Let's talk about it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.